Hey, good day to you. Welcome to another episode here from the perspective of an Arizonan here on YouTube. I also go by An Arizona on X and Instagram if you're interested in following over there. Play a lot of golf on Instagram, and then on X I don't know, man. Just trying to figure out the world with everybody else, and I look at the different perspectives and whatnot. So either one of those platforms are fun to experience life through within moderation, not spending too much time on them, just like YouTube, anything else. So if you want to follow me over there, please do. Today we're going to talk about some things. I'm also going to try to upload this to my podcast stuff. I'm really new at content making, and so these first these first few are going to be a little rough. So I apologize, and I thank you for sticking with me on it. With that said, I'm going to kick off content now with kind of my little disclosure. And it's kind of like a little piece of wisdom that if you don't take anything else from this, I hope this gives you something to think about at least. And that is that there are only 4 currencies. The first currency is time. It's the ultimate one, right? Human beings, our time is so precious to everybody. You're on YouTube right now processing the world, and you're spending your time with me, so I need to make that time worth it, right? It's for you to continue to consume my content. Just like every other content creator, just like every amusement park, movie, anything else that you consume, everybody wants your time because your time's valuable, just like your employer wants your time. And I apologize if the plane kind of washes me out. So thank you for your time, right? And second of the 4 currencies is going to be knowledge, right? And that's what you're looking for in consuming this content, is that I'm going to share some knowledge that's going to be beneficial to your life, and that's why you're trading your time with me. So that's the beautiful thing about this alternative media revolution, citizen media, citizen journalism, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to talk about that term here in a little bit. But this movement's beautiful because it democratizes content to whoever's giving you the best value for your time. That's where you're going to spend your time, right? And then the tech companies that facilitate this mechanism then give revenue to those who generate the most amount of interaction. So good model. We're all trying to hack it. That's what I'm here trying to do. But I'm just letting you know that those 2 things are effectively the ultimate currencies, right? Knowledge and time. Skill then becomes a combination of knowledge, time, and perfect practice, right? We need to remember that practice doesn't make perfect. Practice can make a training scar. Perfect practice makes perfect. So if you look at the podcast realm, YouTube here itself, any of this new media, what are we talking about? We're talking about optimizing our lives and optimizing the ride. So we're spending our time to gain knowledge to optimize our experience, right? And then we can apply that to whatever skill set we're pursuing. And that's what we're all kind of looking for. So the 4th one is going to be honor. Honor is the ultimate of the currencies, is somebody being genuine with what they're telling you during that time that they're spending with you, so that it'll be of service to you, or is it going to be of service to them? So is the information that I'm sharing here today serving me because I'm going to get ad revenue from the video, or is it serving you so that you can live a more fruitful life, and then I'll get ad revenue as a byproduct, right? My aim is to be that latter one, to be the person who gives quality information that helps, whatever aspect of your life it helps. And that proliferation of people saying, hey, check this dude out, his information, it helped me with some stuff, that will then create ad revenue for me, right? So I promise that I will share the best of my understanding of things at the time. I'll let you know when I'm being hyperbolic. I'll let you know when I'm kidding around a little bit, but all those mechanisms are kind of to help blossom understanding, to make content not be boring, right? So thank you for the 5-minute intro TED Talk. I apologize for that, but I just kind of, I want to kind of kick off videos with that for a while. So if you're, I'm going to figure out timestamping eventually, so I'll be able to timestamp after the intro, but that's not going to be included in this video because I'm just going to upload it when I get home and start prepping for dinner. So just a normal dude in the suburbs, retired from the fire department, served in the Marine Corps, born and raised here in the great state of Arizona. That's why I go by An Arizonan. And today I want to talk about something that I think in the wake of the pandemic, we really need to consider having a better understanding of. And that is who controls the media. So, my spiel up front there is you control the media, basically, is what I'm trying to get to, right? With your time, with what you consume. So anytime somebody tries to tell you that a certain group is controlling the media, they're full of crap. What they actually mean to tell you is that there's a certain group who owns media companies that then put out content to then, make themselves look better. That's what's going on. Is we have a bunch of groups that own media companies putting out content to strengthen their argument for their goals and their needs, and everybody puts a slant on it, right? So let's talk about that. So the three things, and this is just my opinion, this is my observation. There are three things we need to consider when we're taking in content. Is it marketing? Is it propaganda? Or is it reporting? Okay. So marketing is somebody that's going to tell you all the benefits and features of something, and they're going to leave out like the messy details, right? Like, let's just take a mundane product off the wall from a local store that's a recreational item. I'm gonna go with paddleboard because it came to mind first. So if I'm going to tell you a paddleboard, I'm going to be like, yeah, this thing's this long, it does this for you, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to tell you that we've had these ones returned after about 18 months because the glue between the foam and the board itself starts to come undone. They said they fixed that anyway in an email that I received as a purveyor of paddleboards. So why let you know about the messy details about an older lot of these that, may or may not be true for you? So I'm going to leave that out, but I'm going to tell you about everything cool that you can do with this paddleboard and how great they are. And I'm going to tell you, like we haven't had any come back with pops in them. We haven't had any come back with, like, I'm going to leave that little thing about that foam and that older generation out because I'm pretty sure this is a new one and I'm pretty sure they fixed that, right? That's marketing, right? Propaganda becomes where I take the best and the most, like, what do you call it? The most magnanimous, like the highest level of achievement that something's ever done, and I put that in the forefront. And I go, look at everything great that came from this. And then the opposing view, I look at it and I go, look at the most disgusting things that this created. And we see that right now in the conversation about America, about, other countries and the way that they run themselves. We'll show you the atrocities of communism, but we won't talk about if there was anything that was learned out of that that's good. And then we'll talk about the amazing aspects of capitalism, but we don't go down to the unhoused camps and the fentanyl problem and talk about that and what capitalism's created inside of that with things like the Sackler family and, the unrealistic expectation of a 0 out of 10 on the pain scale, right? And, that was all done through propagandist. I would call it propagandist marketing, right? They called it marketing, but it was propaganda. So you can take propaganda, church it up, put a wolf in shepherd's clothing and call it marketing. And I think that we have fallen for that a lot as Americans. And I think so how do you unpack that, right? How do you see if somebody's putting a slant on something? It takes some time. It takes time and effort. I'm not going to get into, the details of anything because I don't have anything prepared, right? I'm just kind of going off the top of my head of how to best explain this. My mechanism of understanding and my mechanism of explanation is through, 15 years on a fire truck as a fire captain and as a paramedic. You wind up figuring out how to connect to people on the most basic levels with, complex issues or complex things. So that's kind of like the premise of how I'm trying to convey these things. I don't want to get super deep into any rabbit holes as far as who's doing what to who. That's the work of a lot of other people out there in the digital space. I consume a lot of that content. I'm a big conspiracy theorist guy. I will look at everything. And the reason was, I'd make this argument to people. They'd be like, why are you listening to that crap? And I'm like, what if? What if some of this stuff that they're talking about is true? What if, what if listening to a voice saying that the open southern border is allowing Muslim extremists to come through, right? Islamicists, like people who want to do the same thing that we saw on 9/11. That's right-wing conspiracy theory talk. Okay, well, I was on a fire truck that worked in an area where it was on the edge of the Phoenix area. So we actually interacted with where the coyotes were dropping people off. So we interacted with Border Patrol, and we saw the human beings. And there were times you would realize like that person's from the Middle East, right? But they're in a group of people that are just undocumented and getting processed through. and you couldn't say anything about it. So fast forward a little bit, there's a fire truck in the greater Phoenix area that noticed something on a call once, and it was because a member of that truck had served in the military and had been overseas. And some of the documents and the items that they saw in this place, and plus the interaction with the occupants, set off some red flags. And so this person, they reported it to the proper chains, and they found out that they had some people that didn't particularly care for our way of life, that had snuck into our country. And what I'm getting at is, if we would have listened to the popular, that's just you being paranoid, okay? But we're seeing the signs of it, so I can't listen to you, right? And so if the mainstream that's telling me that that's paranoia is wrong about that, what else are they wrong about? So that's why I listen to like all those alternative things, right? And that's why in the pandemic I got into listening to podcasts and seeing what they were saying and seeing the guests they were having on. It's why I got into looking at the other side of arguments as heavily as I did, and it guided me through that pandemic. My claim to fame is this: I was a union vice president at the time when mandates were rolling out. And my firefighters called me and said, "We're not taking that thing." I said, "Good to go, me neither." And they're like, "Well, why aren't you taking it?" I'm like, "Look, here's the deal. I don't trust it, right? And not an anti-vaxxer by any means. I have the smallpox scar on my arm from when I was in the Marine Corps. Smallpox sounds awful. You want to go ahead and give me the little stab so that I won't die that way horribly in battle because somebody decided to bring that dormant thing out and do something really nasty with humanity. I would like to survive that. That'd be great. So vaccine hesitancy is not what I am. What I am is somebody who understands the difference between reporting, marketing, and propaganda. Now, reporting is what I'm trying to do right now, which is to give you the facts as I understand them so that you can make the best decision you can with those facts. So when they started rolling out mandates, it went against what I knew to be the ultimate gift to the species, regardless of what you believe, right? I'm an American, First Amendment for the win. I believe in God, I believe in the Son, and I believe in the Holy Trinity, right? That's me. I don't care what you believe in. I just don't. I'm supposed to try to get you to believe what I believe. I've always struggled with that, right? Because I believe so much in America and its freedom, because America honors God's first gift to the species, which is the gift of choice, okay? We are the only animal that can choose to make ourselves so useless that we'll die a big, fat, useless slob. It really is. I mean, it is what it is. No other animal that is striving to live lets itself do that, right? So that complete antithetical concept to how life really works anywhere else in biology, to me is like the expression of we have this ultimate gift. And as was explained to me as a kid, that gift of choice was his love for us, his respect for us. He figured we'd do right by it. He'd come and give us a bunch of guidelines and we'd follow them. That was how it was explained to me. And it's always kind of proven itself to be right, if that makes sense, where there's a couple really good volumes of a really big book that if you read the first half, you understand that people struggled and they got to a point where they couldn't figure it out on their own. God himself had to come here and show us how to treat one another better. And everybody who's been trying to explain that has been doing a poor job of it, and some people have done atrocities in its name. And that's propagandized, where we show the worst, which is like the Spanish Inquisition or burning of witches. But we don't show the beauty of like what Christian organizations right now are doing to help homeless people in America, right? So let's reject all the goodness that we got out of this faith and this religion because some people were a-holes. Well, it's like, you can go to any ideology or anything like that and find that same dichotomy. So stop using that argument. Argue about the meat and potatoes of things, like who has a better intention, who doesn't, what's stewarded humanity better, what hasn't, right? And I'm not making a play for people to become believers. I'm not. I'm just saying that that's how I see it, that's how I understand it, and I'm just reporting that that's what I've seen in 43 years. So if God's ultimate gift to the species is choice, and America is the ultimate expression of that gift, right, which is freedom, a freedom to walk away from religion, walk away from God if you want to, believe whatever you want to believe, and you can run the experiment that is the gift of life under that belief system. That's why the United States has become the superpower it has. It's allowed human beings to explore, experience, and figure it out for themselves, right? It's given us that same respect that God himself gave the species when he gave us this beautiful gift. And that's the secret of our proliferation. It liberates minds, it liberates people to live well. And for whatever reason, the rest of the world's not into that. There's only 340 million of us. People will pour in here by the millions if they're given the opportunity, as was demonstrated in that Biden administration, because of the opportunity that they have to use that gift of choice to live a better life. And if that doesn't tell you something about our species and how that works, I don't know what will, right? And again, you don't have to believe what I believe, but you need to see that our species wants to live better, and when given the opportunity, it will flock to that opportunity. So that alone, I mean, you can call that the biological imperative and dismiss it down to that base level. I'm down for that. I agree, right? The biological imperative to an intelligent animal is to find ways to proliferate better. And that's what we do. We model the things that proliferate well. So when propaganda proliferates well and sells well and gets you paid, gets you a higher level of status in your society or community, guess what? You'll sell propaganda. If marketing is what gets you paid, remember our paddleboard. I'm going to use marketing. If reporting is what gets you paid, you report. I'm just reporting observations on how life works right now, effectively, right? How to consume content, how I consume content, and what to consider as you do, right? A lot of people who kind of worship their own intellect, where they're like, oh man, I have these degrees, I have this experience. I see all those things that I have been blessed with as blessings, right? That's the main difference between somebody like myself who believes what I believe and somebody who understands that they were born at a time and that like they need to achieve as much as they can to be the best they can so they can win and be like the move forward, right? I don't see it that way. I see that you're born to a tribe and you're given certain gifts based off of what you interact with along your life's path, and then you kind of fulfill that need for your tribe. You listen to that calling. For me, my dad was a firefighter. I saw the beauty that brings to a community in the hardest of times. My uncle was killed tragically in a drunk driving accident. So my dad actually tried to see if he could save both my uncle and the other passenger of that vehicle. He got some burns as a result. Everybody in the family was super appreciative. He had no idea who was in that car. It wasn't a vehicle he knew. He didn't know my uncle was in there. And it was from a different side of the family, but regardless, if he had known Paul was in there, he would have probably, I don't know what he would have done if he didn't know Paul was in there, but I'm glad he didn't, because the force in which that vehicle hit that pole, neither person could have survived that impact. And my dad just doing a hasty search and burning his arms was his duty, right? He was a firefighter. He had to go make sure that there wasn't a chance for somebody to survive in there. Did his hasty search, realized like he had nothing on the backside, hit a body. You hit a body that's not with you. You can feel it, but as he told the story, he couldn't feel anything because they were crumpled they didn't have seatbelts on, so they were crumpled in the floorboards. This was a 1970s vehicle, right? So the hot bodies behave differently in those things. So old man did his job, did his duty, went back, got his gear on, called it in. They wind up putting it out. He doesn't find out till later that was who was inside. And my family just like hated my dad because my dad did some things that he shouldn't have been well liked for. But in that moment where he did the right thing and at least tried, he had this like redemptive aspect. And I just remember that as a kid going like, okay, if you live with honor, it's a better way. So I grew up with that fire underneath me to go ride on a fire truck like he did. 9/11 happened, so I joined the Marines. 343 of my brothers were killed. So my understanding of the world at the time was that, a group of people who hated our way of life because some of them had come here and seen things that made them very envious, and that they hated the fact that bad actors from our country had manipulated, bad actors in their country for financial gain. And that's what, in the back and forth of all those things winds up creating, hurt people. And that's what made them lash out. I'm not excusing it. I'm just understanding it. They also found out that we'll put a bunch of people on ships and planes and go over to their side of the world and, be just as violent, if not more so. And I don't feel any guilt or shame over that too, because that was our worldview at the time. Our worldview of 2025's time is that it's much, much more complicated than that. And we are all trying to vote in a way that will bring forward leaders that will help make sure that our kids don't struggle and suffer the same way we did and get misused the way we were, the way our fathers were in Vietnam, right? The way our, some of our grandfathers or older uncles were misused in Korea. And then obviously World War II, that was kind of like the last noble war, it seems, where two sides squared off mano a mano to figure out who was going to be the victor and who wasn't. And a lot of innocent people had to pay the price for that. And that, it's an atrocity for humanity. But it had to happen because you had a group of occultists running a country with the greatest war machine on the continent who thought that their race was superior to other races. And we now know through DNA that the whole concept's poppycock, right? We're all just part of the same species, and we have microevolutions based off of equatorial vitamin D needs, effectively, right? And then, since the world's become so globalized in such a short period of time, we've mixed the people who look different because of that equatorial lineage. Now, how that was done, I listened to a lot of the what you would call woke arguments. I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There were tons of atrocities, but there were atrocities everywhere, right? Just like there were atrocities on both sides of the global war on terror, just like there's atrocities in the streets of Phoenix, a few miles that way right now. There's people being human trafficked. There's people being, there's monstrous things happening to human beings in our backyard. And it's a lot of weight. It's a lot to manage. It's a lot to figure out. And it was my honor to do it for a small community, right? For, every community has a fire station, and then you got to have a group of guys on there that are taking care of that community and watching out and looking out for all the good guys, the bad guys, and everybody in between. And we're not supposed to judge or do any of those things when we take care of folks. We're just supposed to show up and protect life and property. And that was an honor to do that. So, but when you're going and seeing all the problems in society, you wind up asking a lot of questions. And if you're like me, you seek answers. What we saw in the pandemic, I just want to address. It's a status thing. So if you were pro mRNA experiment, you were elevated in certain social circles. If you were anti mRNA experiment, you were also elevated in certain social circles if you had the clout, right? When you understand that social status and its weaponization or manipulation as it pertains to what we saw in the pandemic, it really starts to become more clear what happened. We elevated the voices who supported one side, and we demonized the voices that talked about the other. And what it did was put a blinder on to all Americans for what the right decision was to make, what to do with their gift of choice. And for me, that was a no. It didn't cross those lines, right? So as a union officer, I was able to stand in the way of mandates for the people who elected me. That was the proudest thing I did as a union officer. I made sure that their gift of choice stayed intact because they elected me to do that for them. I'm not saying I'm the end-all be-all of people who, do that work. I'm just a practitioner of it. I'm just one. I mean, I'm sure there are other union officers who had the same success, but they're probably still on fire trucks and they can't talk about it. They can't talk about what happened in the meetings because if they do, they'll lose their careers, like I did. I didn't start talking about what I saw behind closed doors until after I retired, right? I carry a little guilt with that. I don't know why. I shouldn't. Not a single person in my community, not a single person on the internet gives two darns about my ability to provide for my family at the end of the day. They care about their ability to provide for their family and the ability for the people closest to them to provide for their families. That's all they have the bandwidth for. That's the average human being. No big deal. I'll take care of myself, right? My job was, as a union officer, to stop mandates for my people, and I had. The fact that my chief told me that the reason that he was going to go ahead and allow that was nothing was tying his hands. And I asked, what do you mean? Our body's our choice. He said he agreed, but if something came down the pipe where he had no choice. I'm like, well, that's not leadership, sir. right? That you're supposed to lead us. You're not supposed to follow what somebody else tells you to do. Like, how is this? This makes no sense. So I retired. There was a bunch of other stuff going on too that was really corrupt and dark and bad, but that was really kind of the camel's back was already broken, man. That was like Stone Cold Steve Austin coming off the top ropes and hitting that broken camel's back, if I'm being really honest. Terrified me. What do you mean you'll order our people into a medical experiment that you don't fully understand? Who's going to tie your hands? Federal legislation? Go get the lawyer. Sue them. This goes against their ability to choose for themselves. I'm not doing it. That's all he would have had to have said. He'd have got his little name in the paper, right? And he could have said, hey, I'm about individual freedom. Sorry, if I'm going to apply it one place, I got to apply it universally. If my body, my choice is the chant of the left, then my body, my choice is the chant of the left. The Republicans want to protect life. Well, since it's your experiment and it's your life that you're protecting, well, then shut up and let us run our own experiment. That's how I saw it. That's how many of us saw it, but we were drowned out. And the people who drowned us out were given higher status. And those of us who denied it or fought it, our status was lowered. And then we had to go figure out our lives again. And that's fine, dude. I'm good with it. I get a pension. I play a lot of golf. I work for a great company now in the private sector that's going to help revolutionize the way we train firefighters. So my blessed career of training firefighters, training paramedics, being a union officer, running elections, I got to see it all. I got to do it all. So I can look back at the plaques on the wall and say, hey, the thing I said I was going to do when I left high school and the life I was going to conquer, I conquered it. Now I'm going to go conquer another half of it, that an opportunity that I was shown through service, and use all of that experience to make better arguments behind closed doors about better ways to train firefighters, which is a revolutionary concept that we're going to look at them as industrial athletes and not just, public servants. Because to go 20 to 30 years in a job that's that hard on the body, mind, and soul, it takes an athlete's rigor and dedication. It really does. The pay is not there. 65% of firefighters are volunteer in America. Think about that. But, if good people work on the problem, we can get it there. The company I work for, what we do is we make, the firefighting gear that you see the men and women out there on the trucks wearing when they go fight fires. Well, if you want to get physically fit to fight that fire, you have to wear that gear and go work out, right? Well, that gear has been inside of a fire, and all the smoke and all the carcinogens and stuff that causes cancer is stuck in those clothes. So you're then breathing it off, and it's then absorbing into your skin as you're working out. So not just when you're fighting fire, but when you're working out, you're constantly exposed to what you're exposed to from fighting the fire. Now, this idea has been around for a long time. I've talked to plenty of retired old firefighters like, we talked about that back in the 80s. We talked about that in the 90s. I've had that conversation probably a dozen times with old retired folks at this point. But the company I work for finally had a guy who had enough and went and built the product. So basically that suit that we wear to fight fire in, well, we built one that doesn't fight fire. It's just heavy like it, and it performs like it. So when you work out, you get the same workout, but it never sees fire, so it doesn't have any of the cancer stuff in it. Real simple. It actually mirrors the way that I trained my entire career. So I'm a second-generation firefighter. My dad had cancer when he died. I knew cancer was part of the job when I signed up. I don't like when people act like it's some sort of shock that cancer in firefighters is new or something. It blows my mind, but it's also because people don't pay attention, and I get it. They have their own problems to solve. But I facilitated that same training mechanism with a clean pair of firefighting gear that I never took into a fire. So I was able to get my hands on a brand new set that never saw fire, and I just made sure it never saw fire. I went and got a couple of other sets that I could take into fires. So I trained that way my entire career, and now I work for a company that's going to be able to facilitate it for all firefighters. So I had a really great run, and I'm still having a great run. So I'm just sharing the observations that I have of what happened on the inside, what I saw, what we did, how mandates never got to us. Back to that reporting, marketing, and propaganda thing. I'm gonna leave you with this today. The term vaccine was trusted. We thought that it killed polio. Arguments can be made. We thought that it, kept us safe from measles, mumps, rubella. We thought that it kept us safe from all kinds of things. And then they used the term that we trusted, vaccine, and they rebranded it, they marketed it as mRNA viral defense therapies. Experimental, by the way. So to call those things a vaccine, you can call them an mRNA vaccine if you want to, right? I'll concede that point. But what does mRNA mean? How does it work inside your body? What does it plug into? What does it convert? And how does it make your immune system work? And so many people just wanted to be let out of their houses and get their lives back to normal that they ran down to get a shot that they didn't fully understand. And they were given status, right? Like you were a good American status for doing it. But they went and got a shot they didn't fully understand. And the men and women that were giving the shots out, I don't know how many of them fully understood what was in those. I don't know if they fully understood the Emergency Use Authorization Act that they were, created underneath. I sure as hell know that the members of the school board and the people at Target who gave out $200 gift cards to high school students if they would, go ahead and sign up for the experiment. I know they didn't know better. But who did? Right? You're bribing kids in the inner city with $200 at Target to experiment on themselves. And if you got kids to sign up, you were good. You were patted on the head with the administration. Bonkers. But here we are in 2025, and we got to look back on it and go, what did we do? What's it mean? And what's it going to do to us moving forward? What's it mean for us moving forward? How do we better interact next time? That's what this is about. That's what this podcast or these videos are about. So I hope you can take that away today, that they took a trusted term called vaccine and they marketed it. They marketed mRNA as vaccine. Was that propaganda or marketing? I don't know. You can figure that out. I'm just reporting on what I think I saw. So if this has been a service to you, do me a favor, like, share, subscribe, those things. If you host content and want to have a conversation about what we saw on the front lines of the pandemic and that perspective, please let me know. I would love to talk to you. I know people who are very religious aren't the most popular thing for entertainers right now or content creators, but and then there's the whole other side that religion is everything, right? Understand that I'm not a religion is everything guy. I'm not somebody who forces it down. This is how it's guided my life. This is how it served me. If you think that that's done good things for me in my life and you want to see how it could interact with you, please let me know. I don't care if you do or not. If you have something that's working for you, great. You're treating other people awesomely. You're taking care of everybody around you. You're taking care of your community. Rock on. I don't care what you believe. You don't have to believe what I believe. That's between you and the big guy. That's between you and this existence, this gift of life. So, rock on, man. I'm glad you get to, and I'm glad I get to. That's why we're so blessed in this country. And let's just agree on that. We're blessed in this country to figure it out for ourselves and then have discussions that are respectful about what we've seen and how that serves us and how it benefits us. So anyway, thanks for your time today. Leave everybody with the same kind of send off, which is take care of yourself, take care of those around you, leave it better than you found it, and things will be good. We used to give our best and we got the best. I think we started thinking we were the best and then creating the image that we are the best without giving our best. And I think that if we go back to giving our best, this place will probably go back to being the best. The only thing that it takes is you giving your time and your knowledge to that best, right? So again, take care of yourself, and I'll see you on the next one.